I recently watched Raymar Football's video about legendary German goalkeeper Oliver Kahn. It was a great video from one of the OG football documentary channels. What inspired me for this vid though was the debate in the comments about the top 5 goalies of all time. My mind instantly populated the number 1 position with one player. There's never any question for me that this man is the best. I was shocked however to not find a single mention of this utter legend in anyone's top 5, let alone top 10. I am of course talking about the bald-headed brilliance of Barthez. Famously short for a goalie, what he lacked in stature, he more than made up for in personality, flamboyance, eccentricity, style and skill. A world-class shot-stopper, Barthez had an absolutely legendary command of his area, and his pre-match head-kissing ritual with Laurent Blanc is truly iconic. The man won basically everything going, and his skill with the ball at his feet meant he was a key figure in the evolution of the sweeper-keeper role. I've just realised that Barthez may be the most underrated goalkeeper of all time. Barthez came from a strong sporting background, as his father and grandfather were both rugby players, and Fabien could have easily followed the same path. Luckily for all of us though, he chose the right shaped ball. He made his senior debut for Toulouse in '91 at the age of 20, but he would only play 26 games for them before moving to Marseille the following year, and his first year with l'OM was an absolute doozy. He won the Champions League that season, meaning that at the tender age of 21, Barthez had his hands on Europe's most prestigious club competition, making him the youngest ever goalkeeper to win it at that time. He was a key figure in helping his side to victory, as he kept 7 clean sheets across the 10 matches of the competition in which he played, including a shutout in the most important match of all, the 1-0 victory over AC Milan to bring the title home. He was of course aided by the formidable, powerful and intimidating figures of Marcel Desailly and Basile Boli in front of him in central defence. And true to Barthez's form, he was not without his hairy moments. I mentioned in the intro that Barthez wasn't the tallest of fellows, so just how short is he? Well, he's 5'11" according to Wikipedia, and I think I can count all the world-class sub-6-foot goalkeepers on the fingers of one hand. Throughout his playing days, Barthez would compensate for his vertical handicap with excellent positioning, immense speed in getting off his line, and a commitment to going out and claiming cross balls which came into his area. And he was doing all of this in his first season for Marseille, but as his career was in its infancy, he lacked the authority to actually win all of the balls that he rushed out to deal with, leading to some heart-in-the-mouth moments for his team, most notably in match day 1 of the group stages of the Champions League against Rangers at Ibrox, where some weak and inexperienced goalkeeping allowed Rangers to overcome a 2-0 deficit and finish the game level. He also almost had a huge howler against CSKA Moscow, horribly slicing a clearance into the path of the opposition attacker to almost gift the goal, which would have given them the lead. Luckily, his blushes were spared by the defender. As I said, this is to be expected from a goalkeeper so young, and overall he did a great job for the team, improving as the competition went on, causing teams problems with his long and accurate goal kicks throughout, and putting in an excellent performance in the final, where his team found themselves under considerable pressure for long spells, making 2 key saves to deny Van Basten and Massaro in the first half when the game was 0-0. Marseille also won the league that year, although they were later stripped of that title when a notorious match-fixing scandal was exposed. President Bernard Tapie, keen to avoid a repeat of the previous year's Champions League final, where his team was without several key players due to injury and heartbreakingly lost to Red Star on penalties, bribed several Valenciennes players to go easy on his team in a League One match 6 days before the Champions League final. As there was no evidence of corruption in the Champions League, Marseille were allowed to keep their European crown, but were banned from defending it, as they were outlawed from any European competitions in 93 to 94. A year after this, with their president in jail and the club struggling financially, Marseille were forcibly relegated to Division 2 for the 94-95 season. Understandably, many top French clubs wanted to take advantage of their rivals' misfortune, and the young and talented Barthez received many offers to remain in League One. However, in an amazing show of loyalty and character, Barthez stayed with the team that had showed faith in him and helped them to gain immediate promotion back to the top flight by winning Division 2. For me, this says a lot about the man, as it is something that I feel would not be replicated by many top players today if a similar situation happened. However, he did not stick around to play for his newly promoted side and joined Monaco in 1995. The stress of the scandals and relegation at Marseille had clearly affected Barthez's follically. as he would sport his now iconic naked napper from 95 onwards. Barthez would enjoy further success in his 5 seasons on the French Riviera, as he won Division 1 twice in 1997 and 2000, and got to the semi-final stages of the Champions League in 97 and 98, only to fall to Italian opposition on both occasions. The player also developed into a star goalkeeper during his time there, and even captained the team for the last half of his stay. Anytime the ball came into his box, he acted like a terrier defending his garden. He took it as a personal offence that any threat had entered his territory, and he bravely and quickly worked to extinguish that threat. And at Monaco, his strength, authority, elevation and decision making when coming out to punch or gather across had greatly improved, as did his speed when cleaning up loose balls. If he decided to punch a ball clear, that ball got punched clear. If he decided to collect the ball, that ball got collected. Well, for the most part, because of course there were a few hairy moments, such as times he would decide to come for a ball that he would have been better letting his defenders handle and he would be left in no man's land, or his weird tendency to rush out and close the angle of a wide attacker only to leave the goalmouth gaping for someone to tap in the cutback. But generally, he was a much more assured and reliable presence at the back. Something which Barthez also excelled at, which I think is not mentioned enough, is his excellent distribution, most notably his quick throws after making a save, and his brilliant awareness of who in his team was free as an outball. His route 1 distribution was also very dangerous, frequently creating opportunities for his forwards in the final third. Another thing that started to become apparent at Monaco was Barthez's love for having the ball at his feet and willingness to venture outside the box with it and distribute the ball from a more advanced position. He didn't do this quite as spectacularly as he would later in his career, but it is not surprising that he started to get itchy feet, given as he was known to refer to his goals as his cage. Of course, although his exploits domestically and in Europe while playing for Monaco saw him enter the wider consciousness as a top-notch goalkeeper, it was his performances on the international stage that propelled him towards superstardom. At France 98, his teammates like Zidane and Henry quite rightly grabbed most of the headlines, but his fantastically flamboyant and brilliantly brave showings captivated the world, who were enamoured with this eccentric little goalkeeper, putting his body on the line and rushing far out of the box to deal with balls he surely had no right to, and pulling off stunning reflex saves, resulting in some heart-stopping moments. A brilliant piece of French fraternal superstition would also enter footballing history during this competition, as Laurent Blanc was sure to bless the bald bonds of Barthez with a bisou before every match. Maybe they never would have won if not for that. Who can say? After their wonderful triumph at France 98, the weight of expectancy was now pressing on Les Bleus going into Euro 2000. Barthez had actually agreed an £8 million move from Monaco to Man United the month before the tournament began, meaning that there was a considerable amount of extra interest from England in the French number 16. Yes, just another example of Barthez's quirky personality shining through on the pitch was his insistence on wearing the number 16 shirt while playing for France rather than the customary number 1. He was spectacular once again throughout the tourney and saved the French on numerous occasions with several key interventions, including a couple of important saves against Denmark early in the first half of the first game of the tournament, which France had started shakily. He denied Raul and Alfonso in the quarterfinals, although a typically erratic piece of goalkeeping saw him concede a penalty in the dying minutes of that match and allow Spain the chance to dramatically draw level, only for Raul to balloon his shot well over the bar. So Barthez arrived at Old Trafford as a European and world champion, and he was considered by many to be the finest goalkeeper on the face of the earth in that moment, and it was someone of exactly that quality which Sir Alex Ferguson needed between the posts, as he, understandably, had been having a hard time replacing club legend Peter Schmeichel, with Barthez's predecessor Mark Bosnich not working out. And box office Barthez certainly delivered. In a triumphant first season, his frequent shot-stopping heroics helped the Red Devils to an historic third Premier League title in a row. One particularly memorable moment came in a match against Leeds, where Barthez all but stole the show. Right on the stroke of half-time, he gave away a penalty after lashing out at Ian Hart because he felt that he had been fouled by the Leeds player. He can count himself a little lucky not to be sent off, but as it was, he only got a yellow and was given the chance to make a fine stop to deny Hart from the spot. There was one bit of improvisation from the Frenchman that didn't quite work out, as in an FA Cup 4th round tie versus West Ham, he tried to trick the on-rushing Di Canio into thinking he was offside by standing stationary with his hand aloft. Di Canio had clearly been taught well to play to the whistle and slotted the ball past Barthez. The goal stood. Now, the Premier League certainly wasn't new to the idea of madcap personality goalkeepers, Bruce Grobbelaar being a fine example, but Barthez put on a show spectators had seldom seen before. He brought everything nothing that I've talked about so far to the last line of United's defence, but it was something else which stole the hearts, minds and imaginations of fans up and down the country. With the way football has evolved, we are conditioned nowadays for a top level goalkeeper to be comfortable with the ball at his feet. It is almost mandatory due to how teams like to play out from the back. It really wasn't like that at the turn of the century, and most weren't used to seeing even outfield players do the kind of things that Barthez could do with the ball. I think the modern game owes a lot to Barthez and his maverick ways, pushing the boundaries of the goalie beyond their box and into the opposition's half. After such a stunning debut campaign, fans could be forgiven for thinking that they had found their long-term heir to Schmeichel's throne. Alas, the 01-02 season sort of put a dampener on that idea, as Barthez started disastrously, and it seemed like it was calamity after calamity for the first half of the season. Laurent Blanc had joined the Red Devils that summer, so their international head-kissing ritual was installed before Champions League games. It did not have the same effectiveness. Two honking howlers against Deportivo in Europe must have had strikers up and down England licking their chops at the prospect of facing Barthez, and they were quite right to do so, as he was a complete liability and the mistakes just kept on coming. A weak attempt to gather a cross against Liverpool gifted Owen a free header. A couple weeks later and he lost his head completely, first passing the ball directly to compatriot Henry to allow Arsenal to take the lead in the 80th minute, and 5 minutes later he completely lacked conviction when rushing out to deal with a through ball, and Henry again profited from his error. If he wasn't making headline grabbing gaffes like those, he looked generally short of confidence and was letting in goals that one could argue he should have been saving. It wasn't like he was taking more risks than usual, it's just that with the crazy way in which Barthez played, a style which so endeared him to fans the previous year, everything needed to work out perfectly, and Fabien had to be 100% on his game. All too often, he just wasn't that year, and the defence in front of him weren't either, I should add. His position as the undisputed finest goalkeeper in the world was under threat, as was his place in the team, with many clamouring for the gaffer to drop him. Sir Alex stood by his man and was repaid with much improved form in the new year, which saw Barthez involved in another memorable moment as he took a leaf out his manager, the Master of Mind Games book, and tried to psych out Steve Malbranque, who was set to take a penalty for Fulham. Barthez had disagreed with the decision and refused to stand in his goals for the spot kick, instead banging his boots on the post at the side. He had tried something similar with Muzzy Izzet the previous year to great success. This time he was booked for his behaviour. He had clearly gotten into Malbranque's head though, and he saved his shot. The keeper's improvement wasn't enough to salvage Man United's season, as they surrendered their title to Arsenal. Nor would it have been enough to repair his reputation, as I wager not even those who had been hailing Barthez as the best in the world after his sensational first season would have been sticking their neck out to claim the same a year later. His third and final year at Old Trafford saw him add further silverware to his cabinet, as United reclaimed the Premier League. Barthez blew hot and cold all season though, and gave Sir Alex the best, an utterly world-class save to deny Dietmar Hamann, and the worst, some weak goalkeeping in the Champions League against Real Madrid, saw the gaffer finally lose patience with him and decide to replace him with Tim Howard. With the number 1 spot lost, he went back to Marseille, where he was fine, actually making it to the UEFA Cup final with them in 2004, but something was lost and he wasn't quite at the same level as before. So by the time the 2006 World Cup rolled round, his career was pretty much done, and thus it was a shock when he was named as France's number 1 in the tournament. He actually had a solid competition, and it wasn't a moment of madness from Barthez that crushed French dreams in the final. To sum it all up, Barthez was one of football's greatest ever characters. A larger than life personality on and off the field, he made football fun and exciting, and his flamboyance and eccentricity are something which is missing from the game today, especially between the sticks. He played with his heart on his sleeve, well at least he would have if he didn't cut them off his keeper's jersey. He was brave, bold and just a little bit bonkers. Well, I'm not saying that he's the greatest goalkeeper of all time, although he is my personal favourite. I feel we should not forget his contribution to the game and at least consider him for the top 5.